Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it has been a long time, but this is Uncultured Purls. This is my channel where I talk about knitting, crochet, diamond painting, all things crafts. And my name is Lucy. Today is Saturday, April 27th of 2024. It's been a while. I'm sorry about that. The last time I posted was probably January. I just got very busy. Things happen. I've been doing a lot of work, and kind of just have been filling my weekends with other things, not filming episodes of this knitting podcast. So I'm sorry about that, but welcome back for those of you who are checking out this video. I appreciate you giving me another chance. And let's talk about the things that I've been up to in the past few months. So, let's see. Let me start actually with today and what I've done today. I actually decided to go and donate blood platelets today. Has nothing to do with crafting, but I thought I would share because during this video you are probably going to see these massive band-aids that are on my arms. I just took off the wraps. Like right when you finish, they wrap it all up real tight, but it's been a few hours, so I took that off. This was my first time donating platelets. It was definitely an experience. I have donated whole blood before a number of times. This is my first time with platelets. And this is like totally off topic, so if you don't care, just skip on a little bit to where I start holding up knitting. But if you're interested, here in Virginia we have the American Red Cross. They bought out the Virginia Blood Services, who was another company that we used to have here, but now it's just the Red Cross. And the way they do platelet donation is with a machine that requires a needle in both arms. So one arm, they take all your blood out, they pump it through an apheresis machine. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not a medical person whatsoever. And then there's another needle in your other arm where they pump back in all the parts of your blood other than the platelets. I think they take a little bit of your plasma too, but you get back all of your red blood cells and a little bit of saline as well. So because you're getting a lot of the blood back, you're actually able to donate platelets once a week if you want to. So that's what I did. It took about 3 hours. I got to lay there and watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. They have like little individual TVs where you can watch Netflix. I watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine for 3 hours. It was like relatively easy. So I have a bit of an issue with this arm. Like the vein is not as good in my right arm. And that's the side where they were taking the blood from. And they had a little bit of an issue getting it to flow very nicely. So they're kind of like messing around with the needle, trying to adjust it and get a good flow. And that part was not great. And I started to get a little not feeling good. So they like tipped back the seat and they brought me some apple juice, and within a few seconds I started to feel better. So I told him, I was like, I'm fine now, it's all good. And we continued. I managed to donate the amount that they needed and everything was fine. I got my free snacks, and then I went and bought a sandwich and some Dr. Pepper, which I am now drinking to replenish my fluids. So I would say look into it. If you're a person that's not squeamish about needles and stuff, it really is a good cause, because it goes, a lot of the times platelet donations go to people who are in cancer treatment. They need a lot of help with their platelets, so a lot of times they will get infusions of platelets, and there's very often a shortage. So think about it, or just donate whole blood. I might be doing more whole blood in the future, because it's not the easiest thing to devote 3 hours to this, but I wanted to try it once. And anyway, there's that story. So that was what I did today. Now let's back up to the last time we talked. In January, I was getting ready for our family trip to Disney World. And we did go on the trip. This was my first time flying anywhere since I was 3 years old. So that in itself was a huge, exciting thing. We flew down to Florida. We were there for over a week. I think we did 8 days. And the first half we stayed at the Beach Club Resort. The second half we stayed at the Polynesian, and we had just a fabulous time. My niece is 4 years old. This was her first time going to Disney World, and she loved it. She loves rides. She is generally fearless when it comes to rides. She even went on the Tower of Terror, which she was just barely tall enough for. She didn't love it, but she was game to try everything, and we made some great memories. We went to every single park, had a great time, and it's definitely not going to be the last time our family goes to Disney. It's probably just going to be another maybe couple years, and then we'll go back. But before we went, I was working on a sweater to wear at the parks, because it was still pretty chilly when we went. So it was the end of January into the first week of February when we went, and it was pretty cold. We were generally wearing like fleeces and jackets and stuff at the beginning of the day. Generally it warmed up so that in the afternoon we were fine in just like jeans and a t-shirt, sometimes shorts and a t-shirt. But once the sun went down / in the morning when it was still warming up, it was quite cold. So I had wanted to knit myself a sweater to bring on the trip, and I did. And I remember I was a little nervous about being able to finish it in time. I did finish it in time. So I will show it to you now. Here she is, as you saw in the thumbnail. I got this out of the Knitting with Disney knitting pattern book, which if you go on Amazon or like Google and you search Knitting with Disney, I'm pretty sure that's the title. I didn't bring it over here, so I can't show you. But it's in my last video too, if you want to go back and watch the last video. But it is a, hard copy book that you can purchase that has tons of Disney inspired patterns in it. And one of them is this one. It is inspired by Snow White. It's the Poison Apple sweater. So there is the color work. And there's also color work around the bottom and the sleeves. And I made this in Holst Super Soft yarn. So I bought a big cone of the blue, and then I just bought little 50-gram balls or whatever of the other colors. I don't remember which size I made. I think it might have been the second size in there. And yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just, I think this is a 2x2 rib at the top, and you can like totally see through it in the camera. That's kind of cool. But you increase, it's a yoke, like, you know, in the round yoke, and then just straight down in stockinette for the body. And the sleeves had a little bit of decreases just to shape them. And I guess I should put it on. I'm just gonna, you know, keep talking to you while I awkwardly disrobe. This was my first time using Holst Super Soft. I like the affordability a lot. I'm not sure that I 100% like the feel of it because it's frankly itchy. Because even when I wear it with a t-shirt underneath, I tend to be itchy. And I don't know if washing it a few more times is going to help with that, or if that's just the situation that it's gonna be. Well, and this is like not sitting very well with my t-shirt underneath it, but you can get the idea. The fit is pretty good. I think I did a pretty good job. You know, this is awkward. I'm like, sorry, this is low budget as always, but I am happy with it. And indeed, I did wear it at the parks several days. It was very easy to layer it. So like I would wear a t-shirt and then this and then a jacket on top. And in the middle of the day when the sun came out, I would get hot and take this off, but the rest of the time it was very functional and very nice. So that is finished object number 1. I have 2 other finished objects and then 2 whips. I'm just gonna leave this on for the rest of the video. I reckon it hides my Band-Aid areas, so that's great. Whip number 2. You're gonna see a trend, I'm sorry, finished object number 2, but you're gonna see a trend with these next few items because I really got into the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. And here's the first one. This is unfolded, but boom, there it is. This one is made out of Lion brand acrylic yarn that I think I found at a Goodwill. It's like the ice cream scoops, something like that is the name of it. And I just kind of wanted to use it up and test out the pattern. So I made it, and I think for this one I tried to do the toddler size without amazing success. So I believe I cast off too early because I wanted it to actually have a brim. So like I folded it into itself like you're supposed to. But when I put it on, it does fit, but there's not enough extra to really do a brim. See, like that's way too small. So it fits as a regular hat, just not one with a brim. So I'm gonna have to decide if I want to keep it or if I want to try to give it to a family member. I kind of wanted to give it to my niece, but like the circumference here is fitting me pretty well, so I feel like it's gonna be way too big for her. So I don't know. But that is number 1. It is acrylic. I don't remember the size needle I used. I'm sorry, I'm the worst at this thing. But yeah, there's Musselburgh number 1. Musselburgh number 2 is the project that I took with me to Disney. So I was knitting on this on the plane and in the hotel room, and then I had to continue knitting on it for many weeks after we got back. But it's another Musselburgh, and this one I used some sock yarn that I had been using to knit another shawl, and I showed this in a previous video as well. I had been knitting a shawl with this, but I was kind of playing yarn chicken and I didn't 100% love the finished product that it was making. So I was like, let me just rip this out and repurpose. So that is what I did. This one I do recall I used a US 2. It's a very lovely yarn. It's like super speckled and very uniform across the whole thing. So I started with Magic Loop to do the crowns, and then when I got far enough along that I could switch, I switched to a I believe a 16-inch circular, which I was not a huge fan of. So I bought the 16-inch circular, and I might be wrong with the length of the cord there, but I bought the small circular specifically for my trip to Disney because I didn't want my interchangeable needles to get confiscated on the plane. So I bought a separate wooden needle that I could just, give to them if they didn't want me having it, but there were no issues on the plane whatsoever or going through security or anything. But I had not really tested out this needle at all before I went on the trip. And it turns out I didn't actually love the feel of it because of the length of the needle tips. The length of the needle tips is much shorter than my normal interchangeable needles that I use. And it meant that I can't wrap my pinky around it like I usually do. And I didn't notice that I use my pinkies a lot when I'm knitting until I could no longer get the wrap of the pinkies that I was used to. And so it just didn't feel as good to me knitting with it. So I'm not sure that I will be using that needle in the future. I might just stick with Magic Loop and do the whole hat in Magic Loop. Spoiler, that is what I am doing on a future whip that I'm about to talk about in a minute. But I think that just feels better for me, and really I knit because of the meditative Zen feeling of it. So I would rather just do whatever feels best, personally. But this one I made the adult small, I'm pretty sure. And I got closer with the length of it. So I'll put it on. It's a little bit tight, but not too bad. And then this one I can roll up. So I don't know if it's too tight or not. It's definitely not falling off, so that's good. I maybe could have gone a teeny bit longer so that I could have this brim but still have a little slouchiness, because as you can see there's zero slouch when I do the brim. If I get rid of the brim, then it is a little bit slouchy, but it's almost too tight to even be slouchy. I don't know. It's an experimentation, I guess, and I'm just gonna keep making them until I find, the best happy medium. But I'm pretty happy with this one. I certainly like this finished object more than the shawl that I was making with this yarn. So overall, it's pretty good. So that is my FOs. Those are my FOs. Let's talk about whips. Since we're talking about Musselburghs, I'll show you my Musselburgh whip next. She's a bright beauty. Yes. So I'm knitting this with the idea of wearing it as a running hat in the winter if it's super cold. It has to be like pretty cold for me to want to wear a hat like this while running, but I wanted to have that option, and I like bright colors in my running clothes, so I hopefully won't get hit by a car or bike. So this yarn is by Purl Soho. It is linen quill, and I believe the color is lemon lime or something to that effect. I can tell you. Yes, lemon lime, I was right. And so this one I'm doing the adult medium just to test that out. Again, I'm using a size 2 needle, but this time I'm doing magic loop for the whole thing, which is why I'm having trouble showing it to you. Linen quill is very pretty and very nice. Even in this crazy color. Oh gosh, look what I've done. I'm losing my stitches. All right, we're good. But what was I saying? I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this. I'm hoping that it's not going to be too itchy when I'm running. That's my only concern, that like if I start to sweat on my forehead, and if this alpaca content or the linen content, I'm not quite sure what it is, but this can be a tiny bit itchy. I don't know if that'll bother me, and maybe I should be using some kind of acrylic to avoid that. But then again, wool is so nice. Like, it's very hard to go back to acrylic once you discover natural fibers. So we're experimenting. We're gonna finish this one and see if I like it for running. So that brings me to my very last whip. And this one is quite a whip, okay? This one is probably gonna be on the needles for quite a while. And honestly, I'm a little worried that it's not gonna fit me, but let's get into it. It is none other than the Penguono by Stephen West. So if you are unfamiliar with this pattern, it is a cardigan thingy. It is a funky open garment that you can actually wear two ways. So you can wear it normal way, or you can flip the whole thing upside down vertically so that it just has a different look to it. And it kind of looks like a penguin because the armpit holes become very low down, and it's like your arms are kind of little T-Rex nubs sticking out of the armholes. This probably isn't making a ton of sense, but if you look it up on Ravelry, there's tons of pictures. It is a scrappy project or at least I'm making a scrappy one. I think generally the idea of it is to be a scrap buster. And you control the size of it by choosing a different yarn weight. So if you want a really big penguono, you use a large needle and you can use chunky or worsted yarn. If you want kind of a medium-sized one, you use DK and a slightly smaller needle. Or if you want a smaller one, you can use fingering weight yarn and a much smaller needle. So that's what I'm doing, because a lot of the time the garments that I make tend to be too big for me. I just tend to think I'm bigger than I am. Plus, I think my gauge tends to be kind of loose. And so I follow the instructions, and a lot of the times the finished product is, the finished product has a little more positive ease than I necessarily wanted. So what I'm doing with this is trying to do the fingering version with a pretty small needle to try to have this be not way too oversized. It's not much to look at right now, but I'll show you as best I can. Let me get the right side of it facing you. So here it is. It doesn't even look like a garment at this juncture, but it's gonna be, okay? So this right here is the back panel. I switched my colors like kind of 2/3 of the way through. And then on the back are these welts, 3 welts, so boom, boom, boom. And these were a lot easier to knit than they looked. But you have those on either side of the back panel. I had to do some new techniques with this because this is a provisional cast on, which I have never done. And then this, I believe, is seed stitch. I'm pretty sure that's what that's called. I'd never done that before either. Not that it's hard, it's just like knitting and purling, and then on the other side you do the opposite. Yeah. And then, so this is my like first side that I've done here. But this is kind of the area where the armhole is gonna be. So like this is the side of the body that will be down here on my rib cage. This is where the arm's gonna be. And then this is the front panel. So like we're decreasing down, and this is gonna like sit in the front across the body like that. Yeah, so I'm using all kinds of scraps. Like this purple is sock yarn that I made socks with. This is leftover linen quill from a 50/50 triangles wrap. More linen quill, more sock yarns. Really all of it is sock yarn or linen quill. And here, let me show you the bag of yarn. Boom! I'm trying to use up as much of this as possible. There's the back. You can see all the colors. I actually have another bag here that is like warmer colors, but I actually decided to just save these. Maybe I'll do Penguono number 2 with this, or decide on some other scrappy color, scrappy project with that. But I just decided to stick to mostly cool colors, plus kind of the pink accent, which I just used for the welts. And I don't know if I'll even use it again in the sweater other than just the welts. We'll see what I feel like. And I have not woven in any of these ends, which, look at this, it's gonna be horrible. Not looking forward to that. And let me tell you what size my needle is in case you're thinking of doing a penguono. This is 3.25. And I did do a gauge swatch somewhere. Here it is. I just picked, one of the sock yarns and one of the linen quill, and I did a little gauge swatch and I counted, and I was getting the gauge that he recommends for the small size. And his instructions aren't super clear as far as a needle, because he really just says like, use a size 10 needle or needle necessary to attain gauge. And there's no additional explanation there. And so like using a fingering weight yarn, I couldn't possibly do it with a size 10 needle. That would have been such a loose fabric that like I probably couldn't even have managed to knit it. So I sized way down with my needle to use something that just kind of seemed appropriate for a fingering weight yarn, which was a 3.25. And sure enough, when I counted the stitches, it was what the small size was calling for. So we're gonna see if it fits. Honestly, it's looking pretty small. Like, what kind of a back panel? I guess it's fine when I hold it up to my body. Like, that would fit across my back pretty good. It's not super long, but I'm gonna be wearing a tank top or a t-shirt or whatever underneath it anyway. So it's okay if it's kind of a crop top. Yeah, so that's it, I think. What else can I tell you about? I have a couple unrelated to knitting things, if you're interested. If not, we'll see you next time. I can't remember if I said before that one of my other hobbies lately has been running. And so I've run a couple races since last time I did a podcast. So I'll tell you about them briefly. The one that I'm especially proud of is a half marathon. So I ran my very first half marathon in March. It was here in Richmond where I live. The weather was phenomenal for running because it was about 46-ish degrees and drizzly, which sounds awful, but actually for running it was great as far as performance, because if it had been 75 degrees and sunny, I would have been dead. But it wasn't, so I actually exceeded my expectations. I'm not a fast runner whatsoever. In fact, I would say like below average, but like maybe toward average. But my goal for this first half marathon, I was trying to run between 2 hours and 20 minutes and 2 hours and 40 minutes. That was my goal. And if you work it out, I think that's something like a 10-minute and 30-second mile or thereabouts. And I managed to do it. So I finished, my time was just about 2 hours and 20 minutes, which was the low end of my goal, which I'm very proud of. I ended up walking just a little bit up some hills because why be a hero? So I think I spent about 5 minutes walking out of the whole thing, and the rest was running. And I was very proud that I managed to do it. So yeah, there's that. And then the other race that I ran was this past weekend. It was the Monument Avenue 10K, which is a very popular race here in Richmond. They do it every year. I read online that it is the 4th most popular 10K in the USA. Something around 10,000 people run it every year, and it was my first time running it. I ended up running it with my sister and her husband, and they trained for it. They haven't been running as long as me, but they are like generally fit people. They're pretty active. They do a lot of walking. My sister has to pick up my niece all the time, like, you know, physically pick up my niece all the time. So she is quite strong. And we all ran it together. So we all finished right about 1 hour and 3 minutes, which was good. It was almost a personal record for the 10K for me. Someday I'll get under an hour, but you know, you gotta start somewhere and you gotta have goals to work towards, so we'll get there eventually. But it was more fun to be running it with them than like if we were all just trying to go for the absolute maximum that our bodies could do and we weren't running together. Like, that wouldn't have been as fun of an event as it was with the 3 of us just sticking together and trying to encourage each other and everything. My dad also ran. He did not run quite with us. He started in a slightly later group, but he did great as well, and it was a very fun weekend. Yeah. That's where I am with running. I'm now taking a little bit of a break though from running because I've been having some problems with my foot, and I feel like it's smarter to kind of ease back, give myself a few weeks to see if that gets better, rather than like running through it and possibly ending up with a big issue with my foot. So I'm in this hobby for the long haul, and I'm not trying to wreck myself over something that I have the ability to fix, or hopefully fix. I also talk about reading on these, so my reading has been bad. Not in terms of like the things I've read are bad. I just haven't been reading a lot because I've been very busy. But I was reading The Hobbit. I'm almost done with The Hobbit. I'm also reading another book. Let me show you because it's right here. And I literally bought this at Barnes & Noble just because I like the cover. So it is called Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. It's good, I think. At least it started out very good. I think it perhaps is getting a little bit boring in the middle, which is why I haven't made great progress. But it's kind of like a teen supernatural romance thing, but the main character is non-binary, which I think is cool. And the other half of the love interest, he's a familiar. You know, like how witches have familiars and it's like a black cat. He's not a cat, he's a person, but in this world of fantasy, familiars are people. And anyway, they're being hunted by these evil shadow creatures and stuff. Anyway, it's decent. And not sure what I will read afterwards. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think that's all I have to talk about. So thank you for joining me. If you stuck around for this convoluted rant, hope you all have been enjoying the projects that you're working on, or whatever hobbies you have, you know, whether it be running or exercise or knitting. I think it's very important to have these things outside of work and really outside of family too, that you just do because they make you happy and make you better in some sort of way. So let's celebrate these things together. So I'd love to hear in the comments what you've been working on. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you next time. I hope you all have a fabulous week. Take care. Bye.